The original X-Men animated series is regarded by many as Marvel's best animated project. For many 90s kids, it was their first introduction into Marvel, and it would be a great introduction at that, because it got about as close as a children's cartoon could get in regards to adapting the comics page for page. So when it was revealed that modern Marvel would be continuing the series, during a time period where Marvel's quality control was at its worst, I, like many others, was very hesitant to embrace the show's return, and the various red flag articles about the show's writers inserting modern politics into the series didn't relieve those concerns at all. However, I tell you, dear viewers, that there is no need to fear. X-Men 97 is a certified banger, and it is exactly the kind of show that Marvel needs during this dark period it finds itself in. I often see people ranting and raving in my comments section, claiming that I only ever focus on negative content and bad movies, and that I never have anything nice to say. But I can't help it. Things have just been terrible for a long time.
They'll never know what you sacrificed for them.
You've got to do better, Senator. You've got to step up.
Noob Master, hey, it's Thor again. You know, the God of Thunder?
Look out!
Bruce.
Damn!
Face to face.
That's a face. It's a big face.
You're a monkey, dance monkey, in your little spangly shoes.
But not today. Today we are finally celebrating good, modern Marvel content. I'll tell you why, but unlike Marvel's more hateable products, I'll avoid spoilers here, because this show is actually worth watching, and I wouldn't want to taint that experience. And this isn't like Guardians 3 or No Way Home, where people call them good simply because they aren't as terrible as everything else.
You know what's cooler than magic? Math!
No, this is a genuinely great show that is worth talking about. So, going into this, I was concerned that this series would rely on pure 90s nostalgia bait to trick us into watching yet another lecture on modern politics, like most other shows. But I couldn't be more wrong. X-Men 97 does its best to faithfully continue the series where the previous left off, by faithfully adapting popular comic storylines very closely, nearly page for page in some cases. It even goes a step further than the old series did, as that show's target demographic has grown up. So this current series takes off the kid gloves, and explores the comic's more mature themes. There's blood, death, and Wolverine can actually use his claws in a fight now.
Why resist the inevitable?
Lady, I got 6 reasons why.
It's the Samurai Jack of Marvel animation. 97 also could have played it safe, and made comfortable filler where nothing really happens and the story goes nowhere, like many modern shows, but they went in the complete opposite direction. There are hefty amounts of character development here. The team dynamic changes, character motivations change, bold storylines are told with heavy meaning and purpose. They aren't just fighting big battles because that's what superheroes do. There is value to these scenes, and they have consequences. Finally, there are consequences in a Marvel product. Imagine that. The series adapts multiple comic storylines into one with this season, and they aren't completely one-to-one with the source material, but they get about as close as possible while maintaining continuity from the past, and while trying to maintain a consistent roster on the team, and making sure that every character stays relevant. Plus, when changes are made that stray from the comics, these changes are still made in a way that feels consistent with them. So not only is the story on point, but the writing and the dialogue fits in very well with what came before. Long gone is the cursed, wretched, migraine-inducing, quippy, out-of-place humor that the MCU is obsessed with.
Like a Garbaldegard? Hit a guy, hit it there.
The dialogue takes itself seriously, being overly dramatic and verbose. Some might find it cheesy, but that's exactly how the old series used to be. That's exactly what the comics used to be.
Ancient sands, heed my command, and reclaim these relics of hatred!
It's campy and colorful, it's dark and dramatic, you may not like it, but it is unashamedly a classic X-Men story, and it's so refreshing to see that after years of stories that despise where they came from.
Am I going to war or a circus?
What'd you expect? Black leather?
Let's talk about the characters. It has been decades since Cyclops has gotten to do anything remotely cool, but finally, he is back in full force as the definitive team leader.
You'll never hurt my family again!
Wolverine isn't brute forced into the spotlight for once, and they allow other team members to shine, though he still certainly gets his moments, and they are great. His voice actor shows his age a bit, having reprised his role from the original series, and it is a bit distracting at first, though when you really think about it, Logan is technically extremely old in lore, so a voice like that could still fit him.
I say we skip detaining and mail Trask back to the UN in little pieces.
Beast is as great as he used to be, being far superior to his film portrayal, though he isn't given a whole lot to do this season, so if there is another, hopefully he can have more screen time in the future. Jean is vastly improved from the last series, where in the former she was fairly useless during most battles. Now she is treated much more like the powerhouse she was meant to be, and her design is improved on top of that. Rogue, on the other hand, had a bit of a design nerf. But in spite of that, she was actually a standout character this season alongside Gambit, as those two go on quite a journey in terms of character arcs. Storm also has quite the arc as well, and I know some people weren't happy with her design change, but I would say not to worry, because they still do great things with her character. And yeah, it's worth pointing out that this show has a large female cast, and they are all actually well written.
Impossible.
The MCU, or MCU rather, has made an aggressive effort to knock down and replace its male heroes with flawless, diverse, second-rate replacements that prioritize agenda over story. And we will talk about that in more detail soon, so subscribe to stay up to date. But thankfully, this agenda is in no way a problem in 97. There are plenty of female characters, but they're well developed. They have flaws, they embrace feminine traits, and they're still able to be competent without stepping over the guys. The men are able to stand out and be competent as well. They can flirt with the women without being punched or insulted. They can even give them orders, or save them from danger. These may seem like trivial things out of context, but if you've been up to date with the MCU, you'll know that this has been a problem for a long time, and it is so nice to see a show that finally prioritizes storytelling over modern politics. Some changes have been made in that regard, but the changes are so minimal that it's hardly problematic. Morph has been changed to be non-binary, with they-them pronouns. Normally this is cause for uproar, but I find it to actually not be a big deal, and I'll tell you why. You can certainly notice the change if you're looking for it, but it never gets in the way of the story. It's never used to lecture or preach at the audience with. Morph is still a real character whose identity and personality goes beyond his pronouns. Plus, I dare say there are hardly any die-hard Morph fans out there. He was always a rather flat, unremarkable character that could benefit from some development. So if you are going to make this change with anyone, better him than Iceman. Not to mention, this show also heavily features devout Catholic Nightcrawler, and that was honestly very surprising as well. They show him praying and holding a rosary, and that's never treated with contempt or malice by the writers. They didn't have to do that at all. Nightcrawler was just a guest in the first series, but this series brings him in full time, and is not afraid to let him display his faith. So if they're willing to show both ideologies, respect and representation, then fair enough, it doesn't have to be a problem. And by the way, it must be in Nightcrawler's contract that he gets the best fight scenes in everything he stars in, because man, he steals the show yet again. Most modern heads of Marvel would have you believe that the X-Men and mutants are just a stand-in for minorities, or those of different sexual preference. But while that may be the case to some extent, classic X-Men fans will tell you that it goes much deeper than that. The X-Men and mutants at large represent all those who have ever felt like outcasts, or who have ever faced persecution, whether it's for religious reasons, racial reasons, gendered reasons, or anything even as small as being ousted by a clique in high school. Anyone who has ever felt like an outsider should feel represented in an X-Men story. Their themes are not exclusive to one particular group or another, and X-Men 97 actually seems to understand that concept and portrays it surprisingly well. My first viewing of this show was rather tense, because I kept waiting for some kind of woke stupidity to lecture me, but it never came. As I said before, X-Men 97's only agenda seems to be telling a good story, and boy does that feel good to see. It makes me actually proud to be a Marvel fan again, and it makes me want to share this series with as many people as possible. I don't think it's quite enough to save Marvel's heavily damaged reputation, but man, it is a big step in the right direction. I know for some of you out there this is too little too late, and you still have no desire to give Disney Marvel any attention after all the damage they caused. If you hold this opinion, trust me, I definitely get it, but it's still worth pointing out that this new show delivers on everything we've been asking for. Across all of my complaining through my various videos over the years, X-Men 97 is the exact kind of show I would have in mind when I would suggest what Marvel should do differently. If some of you have already given up on Marvel and don't care anymore, then fair enough. but I think that it is still important to celebrate good works when they come around, because we need to show that as fans we can be pleased, that we don't hate everything, that we don't just dismiss their other movies and shows because of strong women, or because we have superhero fatigue, or whatever excuses they try to come up with to justify their other failures. We as fans can be pleased, and this show is exactly what that looks like. If anyone from Marvel is watching this video, please take note. Make more stuff like this. You need more of this. If you can keep this going at its current level of quality, or better, then there just might be hope for Marvel yet. You know, it wouldn't be such a bad idea to give Earth's Mightiest Heroes this treatment. If you can just make good animations like this, I'll be happy. The animation itself took some getting used to, as the modern style is quite different from the old look, but once you can wrap your head around it, it's a clear upgrade. The movement is incredibly fluid and the action looks great. I could watch these animators create Sentinel battles all day, and thankfully they animated a lot of them. They are incredibly satisfying. Now I want to shift to a side topic here, so bear with me, but anime has been a booming industry that constantly produces stellar animations based on Japanese comics. In fact, they are so successful that their comics are almost completely replacing Western comics in libraries and bookstores. That's all well and good if you like anime, and I do, but I'm also a big time Marvel fan, and as such it has been incredibly frustrating that for years Marvel has been owned by one of the most legendary animation studios of all time, and yet they allow themselves to be completely dominated in this space. DC stays afloat with their animated films, but Marvel has almost been completely irrelevant, until finally, X-Men 97 proves that Marvel deserves a place in the animation world, and I hope they can continue to grow and rival the great powerhouse of animation that is anime, especially when one of the top anime shows of our time is basically just the X-Men of the East. 97 has evolved beyond a simple Saturday morning cartoon. It is one of the best comic adaptations to come around in a very long time. Unfortunately, being a successor to the classic series means this show will probably be pretty confusing to some if you haven't seen the original, as it picks up directly where the prior left off. Bummer, I know, you have to watch one good show to enjoy another, but you have to respect how much effort was made to make 97 a proper follow-up, and they succeed very well at carrying on that legacy. I do fear that this could be another Mandalorian situation, where we'll get 1.5 good seasons or so, but then studio heads will see that people are enjoying it, so they'll insist on getting more involved and making it stupid, but that's a problem for another day. Today, let's just enjoy a good show and hope that more can follow.